Welcome in, everybody, to Season 3, Episode 3, Chapter 19, The Convert. This is our latest review on Episode 3. This one was 58 minutes long. This one was directed by Lee Isaac Chung. I believe this is the first time he's directed in the Mandalorian series. And this is also written by Noah Clore and Jon Favreau as well. So this is going to be the first time that we actually have two different writers for this one other than just Jon. Brought to you with Kurt, as always. And we're excited to get into this one with you guys. So to start off, Kurt, what was your thoughts overall on this episode?
So I thought that this episode, out of all the episodes, particularly was one of my favorites. They went through a lot of backstory telling, and they're kind of driving where they're going to push the actual Star Wars series. I think they're going to kind of tell you how the First Order came to be. It's kind of pushing more of that behind the scenes spy feel to it in this episode.
Yeah, I know you were saying kind of like an Andor feel as well, right?
Yep, definitely like Andor. Amazing beginning though. I mean, even though there wasn't, it was a pretty long video. There was a lot of awesome, fight scenes. The space flight reminded me almost. The space fighting scenes almost reminded me of watching a full-fledged trilogy movie. You know what I mean? Flying through the canyons and destroying TIE interceptors. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I agree. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as 1 and 2, but that's strictly just because we didn't have our main characters in there.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the beginning and the end, obviously, as we'll get into that. But I thought the middle was like being able to going back to that planet was awesome. We got to see like the opera and stuff like that again.
Yep.
So I agree that I did enjoy this one. Not as much as the other ones, but overall, it was a good episode. I think this was the longest one we've had so far at 58 minutes. So they gave you a lot of good storytelling within those 58 minutes. I think the first one was 38 minutes and the second one was 45. So we're kind of building up how long they're going to be as well, which is awesome. So for you, what would you give this one out of 10?
I would rate this a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
Nice. So you like this one more than the first two then?
I did. I think the first two were a nice build up to where they're at. I think this one was great because, I mean, they opened the clip where, Bo-Katan and Din just got out of the waters, being fully baptized back into their, religion, essentially, or baptized back into their tribe. And, I kind of forgot about this in the last episode when they did both go in the waters. They both technically became baptized again to the whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to call it a baptism or, they went back and waded in the waters together. And, inadvertently she did it, but I think I'm rating it that because the story is starting to unfold. I mean, especially how they're building up the cloner and they're building up the New Republic and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed that last part because obviously the title's the convert. So trying to think the whole episode, like who is this referring to?
Yeah.
And once they went to the end and they're like, it kind of surprised you because she was like, oh, well, you're also welcomed in because you did bathe in the water and you haven't taken your helmet off yet. It was kind of like, they're not wrong. Right. And as we'll go into more, her home got blown up. So she really doesn't have anywhere to be going back to at the moment anyway.
Yeah, and I think even like a side point to that too, like is she going to be like the antagonist to kind of like how, the cloning doctor's counterpart to, the spy turned her in, you know what I mean? The imperial sympathizer turned him in. Is she going to turn Din in? You know what I mean? Is that like that kind of symbolic mirroring?
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of worried about too, is she's actually done I have a feeling in the back of her head, she kind of knows what she's doing. Because as we'll get into as well, she saw the Mythosaur, but she never said to anybody that she did. Which I know at the end of the last episode, we discussed, like, is she actually going to tell him or is she just going to let it go? And she actually just ended up letting it go like it never happened. And I think she's going to kind of embed herself and then from within create that like civil war and end up breaking them up. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. But I did enjoy that angle of it.
Definitely.
They're always keeping you guessing with that one.
Yep.
So for me, I would say 7 out 10.
Okay.
I just like when it's based off of our two main characters. I enjoyed the episode, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as 1 and 2 with
Sure.
with those build up episodes. So I had it at a 7. So we have it at a 9 out of 10 and a 7 out of 10. And then to now we'll actually go down into the breakdown spot and kind of talk a little bit about more of what happened. So the opening scene here, we ended up going where we left off with. We were talking with the Mythosaur layer. He's kind of shaken up, and he's spitting up water and just kind of waking up. And as we spoke about, she ended up seeing the Mythosaur down there. She kind of seemed shocked at first. She kind of seemed a little like thrown off. That she actually did I actually see what I just saw?
Right.
But she ends up not saying anything, and they end up just heading back to her base.
And that's it. That part too with the Mythosaur is kind of, it's interesting because she's saying, "Oh, did you see what's down there?" Seeing if he saw it, and he's completely passed out. But at the same time, I mean, in prophecy, I mean, you even go back to the armor when she said in prophecy, that Mythosaur that is going to rise to the top, it's going to rise up, and it's going to restore, a new existence for Mandalore, right? Like it's going to create that new Mandalore. So there's a little bit to that, which they're writing onto it. They're playing onto it, especially her, being coy about how when they bombed the surface, it created a chasm underneath. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah. So he ends up grabbing the water. He takes the test sample of it, and they end up heading out. And as they're on their way out, they are brought, as they're getting back to her palace or whatever you want to call it. They end up having the TIE fighters jump in. So there's probably about 6 or 7 of them that end up coming in. They end up chasing them down. She's able to kind of get away. Din ends up jumping out. He ends up rocketing down, gets in his ship, and they end up handling them pretty easily. Anything with this scene that you enjoyed or saw?
So I thought that it was unbelievable seeing the TIE interceptors come out.
Yeah. The sounds too.
I know,
awesome
and
with that.
I think the best visual part for me though was the inside of Bo-Katan's ship. It has that Old Republic look, or that Clone Wars look, and they really when they're inside that cockpit and they're showing the sensors and stuff, it's very Clone Wars, and they never really updated it. It's kind of like a legacy vehicle. And then of course it's that classic oh no, here comes something on the scanners, and then they're being attacked by TIE interceptors. That I think was probably the greatest thing to see, since I mean even the old trilogy, there wasn't as much action. The action within the first couple of minutes of the show is it's splendid.
Yeah. Did he I think he mentioned where she got that ship from too, but I don't know if I wrote that one down. He made some kind of remark about her getting that ship from a Sith or someone on that side of things.
I don't know exactly I have to look into the back end of how they got that. I think what they were talking about too was that she rips off Imperial guys. Like she was ripping off their ships and taking the stuff from their ships. So I'm guessing those warlords, those Imperial warlords she speaks of, they're kind of PO'd at her. So I think this is a little different though. I think truly what's going on here is it's got to be Moff Gideon, or it's got to be somebody got out and is returning. I mean, I don't think it would be, Grand Admiral Thrawn, but I think that it could maybe Gideon, because you even heard halfway through they said that there was rumors that Moff Gideon got out, when he was on his way to being, sentenced or whatever. So it's cool that they kind of even alluded to that a little bit, if you caught it when they were talking, when they first, met.
Yeah. The only other thing that I saw as well was how they thought it might have been Thrawn, strictly because how many ended up coming in at the end.
Yeah.
I know they said that his fleet size was just like Thrawn has an insane fleet size.
Yep.
So the fact of how many TIE fighters they sent in at the end of that scene, once they blow up Bo's pretty much palace, that's all gone. The TIE bombers come in, but those TIE fighters, there's probably another 20, 25
there was
that
probably
came in there?
at least a full few squadrons that blew through there. There was a lot of TIE interceptors. And it was really cool to see the TIE bombers too. especially when they blew up the castle. It was, who has the TIE bombers stationed inside of there has to be a Star Destroyer somewhere. So they never showed it. They never alluded to the Star Destroyer. So I'm wondering maybe next episode they'll end up showing us, where that Star Destroyer is. I'm gonna say Moff Gideon. Let's say it's Moff Gideon again, but maybe it's someone completely new. A warlord.
I think it's Gideon or it's Thrawn.
You think it's Thrawn?
Just because how many? I don't know if Gideon had that big of a fleet, and I think the other storyline that happened during this one might be leading to that lady trying to break Gideon out. So I think it might be Thrawn. I kind of feel like they just have him as like a looming bad guy that you're not going to see until the end of the season, but you'll be able to look back on and be like, he was involved in all these episodes with us without us even being able to see him.
Only reason why I would think Gideon is because of Elia Kane. That's her character, worked with Gideon. So I'm wondering if she broke him out or there's some kind of bigger. I mean, I know that they're kind of in like a re-education camp per se.
Yeah.
Trying to start a new life for the the New Republic, but it's kind of sketchy if you ask me how that New Republic is being run.
Yeah.
So
a lot of similarities to how the Empire's run.
Right. I mean, we'll start talking about that a little more, but I think there might be foreshadowing that if she's there, is she just like a plant because they want the Doctor, but they want Pershing back? It's hard to say, but I mean, there's a lot that you think could be going on potentially with it.
Yeah, one of the things that this series does so well.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much just the opening scene. This is where we end up getting the credit, or we get the opening title scene titled "The Convert," and then the next shot is of Coruscant and the Opera House, which was a cool throwback to see it in like 4K, 2023 version compared to the 1, 2, and 3 episodes. I think it was was it the first one or the second one that I was in? I forget.
For
the Opera House.
The prequels, I think
even 3.
it's in the prequels with Anakin. There's actually, it's quite cool that where Elia Kane came in, where she sat down, was almost a shot for shot the same as when the Emperor was in with Anakin. Like they did that as a throwback, which I thought was really interesting. And even like the way it's being presented, because that house is always, showing people talking. Like if it's not Senate, which Senate's not there, Senate's rotated. They rotate planets, every so often, I believe. So like the interesting play to that is those opera houses. Like it has significance. I mean, they're bringing that in for a reason, kind of, making it feel more like Star Wars, I guess. Like you're like, wait, I've seen this before. This is great to see it again.
More nostalgia that they throw in there for you.
Yep.
Yeah. So the next shot we have is of Dr. Pershing. I think Pershing's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Dr. Pershing, his speech, pretty much apologizing for what he was doing with the Empire and just stating that the Empire was making me do these things. I wanted to use my research for good. He talked about his mom a little bit. What were your general thoughts on his first speech and kind of what he talked about in that opening scene?
Yeah, so he obviously has a life mission to do good, right? But what he's trying to do is like be a creator, be like a god, kind of like control life, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that in turn ends, he's cloning Snoke or he's cloning the Emperor, and you know what I mean? So I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like there might be a little play onto that, but also at the same time, good always gets used for bad, right? So there's that kind of like similar calling too, because when they show Pershing giving his speech, you see Elia Kane coming in, and the way that she looks is pretty much she's Imperial. I mean, the outfits that they wear in the New Republic are just, they look Imperial, like it's like baby Imperial. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The way that
or a cheap version.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like they look like you would be an officer in the in the Empire. So I'm assuming that there's going to be something going on. There's a power vacuum there, and you can already tell just based on how he's speaking, he's not re-educated. Obviously, he definitely doesn't seem himself. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem. It seems off.
Yeah, yeah. And he generally just talks about wanting to use the super genes of one person and another, and end up putting them together to create pretty much super soldiers is what they wanted to do, and just have these people, these Jedi like people going around and just creating a whole army of them.
Right.
So I know after that talk, we end up going to the Amnesty House, which is where he was staying. And then he ends up running into, I guess, were these some other people that were also brought in from the Empire that he ends up talking to at pretty much at that park bench?
Yeah, I think that they were, either troopers or lieutenants or some form of officer inside the Imperial military that they're giving a second chance. Like, this is kind of like that play on, the space Nazis, you know what I mean, that got a second chance. Like, same thing with like World War II, it's just history in general. They're kind of showing you the aftermath, like even scientists that didn't want to do it, they thought they were doing good, were actually ended up doing bad things. You know what I mean? So it was a cool little way that they played that out.
This is where we have them first meet Elaine Kane and Doctor. They end up meeting there and they talk a little bit. They do mention also, this is where they mention at first that, what they're doing there isn't much different than what they were doing for the Empire. It's just for, pretty much with a different title and tag on it.
Sure.
So I thought that part was interesting as well. And then I think this is where they were talking about Bendu Day. Was that mentioned in this scene as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think when he was in the apartment, it talked about the Bendu Day, which was the creature from Rebels that gave them the insight into the Force, because he has the good and the bad, and he's able to contain it all. That's actually probably my favorite part of Rebels is when Bendu's involved. So, any thoughts on that?
You a big fan with that?
I am. I like that they snuck that in there. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, that was just a little quick insert, right? And they're like, here you go. And then you have to think, you're like, wait, what? Like, what are they talking about?
That sounds familiar, but I couldn't place it at first.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to probably play into, I don't know if that's going to play into Ahsoka. I don't know if that's going to play into, it could play into a multitude of ways that they're going to kind of play that out, which they kind of alluded to it a little bit, but how are they going to introduce it,
Yeah. And then also a little fun fact I saw afterwards was Bendu was actually going to be the word for Jedi. Originally, when he wrote Star Wars, the word, instead of the word Jedi, it was going to be Bendu for everything. But they ended up deciding Jedi and used Bendu for something else. But I thought that was a fun little throw in they had as well.
That's awesome.
So then we pretty much have him go into his apartment. You kind of learn a little bit more about the planet they're on as well. Somebody ends up knocking on his door, or pretty much ringing the doorbell. He goes and tries to answer it, and nobody's there. He ends up looking down, and the biscuits that he said he enjoyed from the Empire end up being right at his doorstep. And he's kind of, he looks around, but doesn't know who ended up dropping it off there, even though we kind of had a good idea on that. So I believe after that, we have them. I don't know. Do you know where it goes after that?
Yeah, he pretty much goes back to his routine life, working for the New Republic. I believe
which is kind of mundane, right?
It's mundane. He's not really doing what he likes. I think he's actually destroying evidence from the Imperials, which he looks at the data and he goes, we could really use this as a good technology, and they just want it destroyed because they don't want to remember anything from the Empire. I mean, which is kind of silly because most likely the Empire has it in redundancy. It's not gonna disappear. They probably have that tech stored. But he feels that that's a waste of technology, and he kind of has that 9-to-5 job where he looks like he can't stand his boss, and he's not. This isn't for him.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he ends up going through the motions. I think he ends up meeting with one of those robots, which kind of seems like a counselor robot.
Yeah.
They pretty much go in and make sure that your programming is, still up to date and following course of what they want you to follow.
Right.
And then he ends up talking with Kane some more, and they discuss about, I think, finding the mobile lab, correct?
Yeah, he he eventually, starts talking to Kane and says, I'd like to have a mobile lab, but it's probably not. It's against the rules, which he obviously cleared with the New Republic. They're like, you can't at any point think that you can go and clone because it's against their rules. It's against the laws. I guess he doesn't feel that it should be. He feels that he should be able to, push that, as his personal life or hobby and do good for the universe. But they don't see it that way.
What are your thoughts on that? Because it's kind of is mixed. At the one token, it's like, yeah, he should be able to do stuff or research stuff that he's interested in. But at the same time, that kind of research that he'd be doing, if that gets into the wrong hands, a lot of people are going to be in trouble.
I think that's a big no-no. Now, I mean, obviously for the life-saving aspects of doing it for medical help, like, fixing a heart or organs or limbs or nervous system parts. That's awesome. But like you said, if it falls in the wrong hands, you're making genetic super soldiers that are, impervious to viruses, impervious to being, fatigued. You know what I mean? So that can create a huge problem.
Force powers,
right?
Crazy.
Yeah, it would be devastating if they can perfect that.
Yeah. So I know he ends up having that convo with her. He ends up going through work again, and then he ends up talking to the robot or the robot one more time, and she's starting to ask the same questions that she always asks. And this time around, he has a different feeling towards it. He kind of feels like he wants to go do more and be more, which maybe he would have been content if he didn't have Kane in his ear, talking to her and telling him you should be allowed to do this. Because she kind of eggs him on to take the courage, because he's not somebody who's going to go out and do it himself. He kind of gets that push from her to actually go out there and do it. So they end up talking, and then they end up going to the scrapyard. So they have to go out of their boundaries for that. They end up getting on, I guess, one of the trains, which you see some more shots of the city, which is awesome. One of the ticket droids ends up starting to check tickets, so they start running to the back of the train.
Yep.
And then, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is pretty cool. It's kind of those robots are really interesting.
They look awesome too.
They look awesome. Yeah, looks like something from like Orwellian or something. I don't know. It's cool. How they design those robots. I think the presence of not him, the unknowing, and why is he doing this? It was kind of a shocker how it obviously all unfolds. But it's interesting that he's doing this in his mindset to set himself free and to help others, but nobody can see it. Nobody wants to care. Most people are happy with just as long as they can stay away from, some kind of battle or some kind of galactic war,
Yeah. So they end up jumping off the back of the train to avoid getting caught by pretty much the ticket droid. So they end up jumping off. They're fine. So they end up going to the scrapyard, and they find an Imperial. Was that an Imperial ship pretty much?
Yeah, it's a Star
one
Destroyer.
like he would used to be in.
Yep, Imperial Star Destroyer.
Okay. So they end up going in there. They end up breaking in. Nothing's being watched, obviously, because it's a scrapyard. Kind of reminded me of the first Jedi game as well.
Yeah,
that kind of scrapyard, which was a cool link as well.
Yeah, they
end up walking in there. Go ahead.
Cal Kestis, he was actually he was scrapping it. They were scrapping those massive Star Destroyers during whatever he was looking for when the Inquisitors were hunting them Jedi's down. I think that's where we're still going with this, because, I mean, they're probably going to allude eventually to Jedi hunting. I would imagine they would do a show about it. It'd be awesome. I would really hope they do, because that would be it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we'd see him in the background somewhere too, just like on the train, or as soon as I knew that's where they were going, I was kind of hope we'd see him sneak in the background somewhere, just as like a little, maybe a thing for foreshadowing. But definitely reminded me of that for that scene. I know they end up getting to one of the labs, and they end up getting what he would need for a mobile lab, and then you start hearing pretty much footsteps. She says, "Oh, it's nothing to worry about. Don't worry about it." and then as they're running out, they end up getting caught. So, what were your thoughts on why she would be setting them up?
So I kind of find it interesting that even when he was set up and he was being deprogrammed again, they never touched her. So she must have this entire time. She's some kind of like plant. She's just making sure that people are doing what they're doing, supposed to be doing. And was she telling on him? Was she setting him up so that you know what I mean? So she can gain more of a higher role with inside the New Republic. It's kind of hard to say, but it definitely is deviant. You know what I mean? It's definitely malice in there. There's malice intent.
Yeah, I still don't know why she is there. Because they were fighting on the same side. They were working with the same person. So I don't know if she feels like he knows too much and has to wipe his brain, or I just don't get the point of like setting him up and getting him caught. Like, I don't know why she needs to wipe his brain.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's possibly like that whole Moff Gideon kind of concept where they want him, they're going to keep him so that he can do what what the Empire's looking to do, which was the contingency to keep Palpatine alive or to clone Force users for that specific reason. Now, is she kind of like that spy that was planted there to make sure that he is kind of in a stasis where they can use him later on for that? That, once the New Republic does rise, the First Order, there's definitely a play on there. Now, is this a tie-in? I would think that this is probably some form of tie-in with her, rise to power. Is she going to be a villain? Is she going to be a part of, being the bad guy? It's hard to say. I mean, she doesn't seem right when she's doing it though. She looks like she's getting enjoyment out of the pain.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It looks like she hasn't made any progress. I don't know if she snuck in there or if she was just able to break the programming, but it will be interesting to find out more about her as we're going along. But I know they end up taking the Doctor to pretty much a torture room. I know that's a mind flare, the mind flare device that they end up using there, which is also interesting because it's more of a callback. They're like, oh, yeah, this is a mind flare, but we're not gonna. It's not to be as severe. We're not gonna crank it up all the way. Just enough to make your reprogramming good. So more hints of that. They're trying to act like they're better than the Empire, but they're literally using the same devices that the Empire does.
Right. It definitely is shocking. I mean, as I watched it, as soon as they opened up and they had the re-education camps and they had the badges and the uniforms, it kind of was already like I got that mix of it's a re-education camp, kind of like keeping misfit Imperials in here to be good, and if they're not good, we're going to reprogram you to be good and to work for the Republic. It was borderline. It's borderline Imperial meets New Age Orwellian
literally
group thing. So
it's like just painting it a different color and just reselling it. I don't know. It was it's interesting to see how life on Coruscant's going right now, though.
Yeah, and you can kind of even see the power vacuums. Like, they even kind of they throw shade at the rebels. You know what I mean? Like the rebellion. We're breaking down them just as we are the Imperials, and we're trying to make sure that is all pieced away. Kind of saying that it's gone. And you could even see the Rebel Alliance, how it's shaping in the New Republic, which has the Rebel signet. Has the crest, and you could tell it's just not. It's not the way the rebels would want it. Like when the rebellion kind of rises up, they're just ragtag, like guerrilla style people.
Yeah.
This is kind of showing you the politics side of it, where it's like there has to be rules and laws, and then there's these big power vacuums of Imperials and rebels, and they're trying to, they're trying to do stuff like this where they're betraying each other.
Yeah. So the ending scene for this one, she ends up telling pretty much her one coworker that's in there. He ends up putting it on the first or second setting, and she says, "Hey, I want to stay. I was friends with him. I still care about him." She doesn't actually care about him.
No.
He ends up leaving, and then she cranks it all the way up.
Yep.
Pretty much, it's gonna completely wipe him. I still kind of think maybe she's wiping it to kind of start anew with him. So maybe she's able to mold him how she wants, or maybe just to forget who she is and just forget their previous conversations and
That's
who she
very
is.
possible.
Yeah, that I'm not 100% sure on, but it will be interesting to see that story develop as the season goes on.
Yeah.
And then I pretty much that's the ending scene for that part of it. The other thought of mine is maybe Moff Gideon is still trapped, and she's going to try to like build her way up on the ladder to get high enough clearance where she'll be able to try to get him out if he is still stuck.
Yes.
But again, that will be to be determined as well.
Right.
And then final scene, we have them coming back with the living water to pretty much clear Din's name. They end up landing, and I guess it was an interesting encounter with Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan and Din Djarin were confronted by Paz Vizsla, saying that you are both apostates and you're not allowed here. And he had to prove. Obviously, he goes, "Yeah, well, I have proof that I did bathe in the living waters." And he says, "Okay, well, I guess we'll see." And then that kind of leads into the armor, and then it's confirmed. So I mean, it's pretty cool to see that they kind of got rid of that, that tick that was on their shoulder. I mean, it's gone. They're now okay. Now, obviously, I don't know how this is going to go with Bo-Katan. And her mentality, it was definitely awesome seeing her though in this last setup. Her combat, her flight, all that stuff was great, and it's a great addition to having her with Din. And I don't know, where is it going to go? Are they going to fight each other? Are they going to become passionate with each other? Who knows? But it's kind of cool because like it's guy girl that are baptized. I mean, it's kind of like it was like a marriage of the Mandalore. Do you know what I mean? Like, are they both Mandalore? Are they? What is it? I mean, is this gonna?
Will she keep her helmet on?
Right. Is there gonna be another schism where she's gonna take some of the other Mandos and show them, this is crazy. What is going on? Maybe she is. She's brought back to being renewed because she has nothing left. I mean, they destroyed her castle. They destroyed pretty much her seat, her where her family crest lies, has been destroyed. It's gone. So does she have to start anew? Is she going to, end up saying this is crazy and going on like a massive Imperial hunt? I mean, I would assume she's going to have some definite vengeance with the Imperials. So it's going to be interesting to see.
What's your prediction? What do you think? Do you think they end up staying together? Do you think it ends up getting fractured somehow and creates a little civil war for a little bit, and then they maybe come back together at the end of the season with like a Thrawn-like villain? Or I'm kind of hoping that they do end up staying together, and Thrawn kind of presents himself, and they just end up trying to team up and build up a Mandalorian army to fight him. But at the same time, I think the way it's going to go is be some kind of fracture that either Paz or somebody's going to start, and it's going to break them up, and they're going to go their separate ways. She'll end up going and getting the Mythosaur, and it'll be a civil war for a little bit for the remainder of the season. But if you had to predict, what way do you think it's?
If I had to predict, I would think that I don't know if there's going to be a fracture right at the beginning. Maybe in like later seasons. I think ultimately, what I want to see, I mean, I'm hoping this happens, is that they do stay together. There's some kind of, whatever, between the two of them where they can restore, the Mandalorian's homeworld and, obviously choose who's going to be prophesized to be the Mandalore. But I think at that point, it might be like a dual ruling, rulers. And I think that they're going to fulfill that prophecy, and that, are they going to ride the great Mythosaur, and are they going to take, their home planet back? That's what I'm hoping happens. Yeah. What will happen? It'll be interesting to see, because I mean, you do have that Grogu dynamic. I thought it's kind of like mommy and daddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool because like Din wasn't with the baby, and you're like, wait, why isn't he with Din? And because he's in the back of mommy's car, and they're chasing TIE interceptors, which is kind of funny. So
yeah, I'm hoping the way that is the way it goes as well. But they always like to throw some stressful things in there. So I'm sure they'll surprise us with something in the next coming episodes. Last thing I have that I thought was interesting was when they dropped the living water in there, it ended up making the same reaction as the first episode when that kid was getting baptized.
Right.
So I'm sure that doesn't mean the armor, maybe she just had extra like water that she brought with us, but
definitely is.
I don't know. I guess maybe she just has like a big batch of it.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes me think maybe she's been down there since as well.
I would imagine that she would have a supply of it. Now, how much does she have? I don't know. But she's obviously confirming because she knows what that does when she pours it in there. So,
and it was the exact same look as episode 1. So
yeah, and I would think that, I mean, if they are pretty like religious in a sense to their tribe where they don't take their helmets off, and she crafts the gear, no one else. So I mean, she's like kind of like that ritualistic shaman for the Beskar armor. So she's definitely gonna know, and I would assume that she probably would have reserves of it, or she would have some form of, supply.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that wraps up everything. Anything else for this episode or the future? I think we covered a lot of it.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if Baby Yoda's his first words were, "This is the way."
Oh, that'd be great. Do you think he's gonna start talking in this season? I'm kind of hoping.
So. No,
it'll probably be the next season.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, at least little words, because I mean, do you notice when like he says stuff, things happen? You know what I mean? Like every time he makes a little noise, they're getting attacked or he's scared or.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. They when they were in Bo's ship coming back, they were saying they were going to have a feast, which I also noticed. Last quick thing, I also noticed she was being, after that whole experience, she was being a lot nicer to him as well. Yeah. She wasn't like giving him crap. She invited him back for a feast, and that's when Grogu was like making a bunch of noises, like, yeah, of course he wants to eat, because that's always the running joke that he's always looking for food. So I thought that was interesting as well. But yeah, I think that's everything for the episode.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I thought it was a very good episode. Like I said, I mean, maybe I'm just scoring it a little high, but I do like the little Andor crossover feel for it. Yeah. I like the Imperial spy aspect of it. I mean, if there was a video game that I can play where it was like Imperial spies, I'd play it. It's such a fun thing. I don't know. It's great to watch.
Yeah. And I think this is why they brought that director on, because I think this director is like known kind of for like that suspenseful, spyish kind of movies and stuff. So I think he did do a great job with the episode. I'm just a fan favorite for having our normal. If we had a whole episode of what we had at like the end and the beginning, would have been fantastic.
You would have been going.
I think this season's pacing really well.
I do too. I think it's great. I think it's great how Lucas is keeping it. Favreau's keeping it to Lucas's story. I mean, these are definitely George Lucas's stories. Anybody that's a major Star Wars fan is going to know that it's George Lucas's writing. I mean, everything from the planets to any kind of the Star Wars think and talk. It's all Lucas story built and driven.
Yeah,
with little subtle things.
That is going to do it for episode 3 for us for Mandalorian season 3. We will see you guys in the next one. Feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, hit that like button.
Please.